Welcome back to The Independent Pianist. I'm your host, Cole, as usual, and today I'm pleased to continue with some more of Grieg's really wonderful lyric pieces. I've done 8 of these pieces so far, including the complete Opus 43 lyric pieces, so I'm going to link to all the ones I've done already so you can check them out, should you be interested in looking at some more of these. I really love the lyric pieces, and I have for many, many years. When I was a kid, I used to practice my sight reading by going through the lyric pieces, and they are a wonderful source of sight reading practice material. They're not extremely technically difficult, but you can create a lot of beautiful sounds in them, and understanding the kind of conceptualization of harmony that you need to sight read successfully. Perhaps because these pieces are a little bit more technically modest and of short duration, there's a little bit of a tendency to dismiss these pieces among some academics. I know I've heard many dismissive comments from professors and fellow students before, but every time I really look closely at one of these pieces, I'm struck anew by how natural and unforced they are with their poetry, but at the same time, brilliantly constructed in every detail. I think it's really extraordinary that a very short piece like this creates a kind of breadth of feeling and a magical sense of place and mood that far exceeds the playing time. Sometimes you don't need a long piece or a complicated structure to create something that's really special and magical. The Notturno is a particularly popular one among these lyric pieces. I've heard many students play it. I assign it to students sometimes. It's kind of perfect for that late intermediate student who's really looking to become more advanced. And for that reason, we maybe take it a little bit for granted, at least professional pianists maybe do. However, if you just take a close look at the structure of this piece, though, there is so much to admire and to actually model on if you're trying to compose a piece like this, a short bit of musical poetry. And believe it or not, it's actually just as tightly put together as anything. It has a certain logic of its own. It's not the same as the music of previous generations, like in a Beethoven sonata, but it's related and very well thought out. There is one way in which this is rather similar to a classical sonata. Grieg sets us off by establishing his 3 leading motives, and these leading motives are part of everything that comes afterwards. So first and foremost, there's a rhythmic motive. This is probably the most noticeable. It's a syncopated accompaniment figure. Although sometimes we get downbeats, we never hear these chords on the downbeat. They're always breathlessly anticipating the next beat. And oftentimes the beats are actually empty in the accompaniment. This obscures the rhythmic structure, contributing to this kind of improvised, floating feeling in the rhythm. Later on, Grieg will find more ways to contribute to this feeling as well. He uses these grace notes, which he writes into the score. And these grace notes are a way of him notating a kind of tempo rubato. This is the tempo rubato referred to by Mozart and Chopin, who said that the left hand should be steady, the right hand should kind of be free, meaning in other words that the left and right hands don't quite line up. Next we have a descending chromatic line in the left hand. This seems innocent enough, but this will also become an integral part of the music. Not only will this descending bass line be expanded into other much longer chromatic descending bass lines, but it will also permeate the right hand, which is full of these kind of chromatic sighs. The main theme, once we reach it after the first 4 bars, is supported by a much more drawn-out example of this chromatic bass line. Interestingly, in this very simple ternary form piece, so it's an A-B-A structure, the final A section, instead of being shortened, is lengthened, and there's an even longer passage like this with a chromatic bass line that goes on even farther. It's a full octave. So as you heard in that passage, we end up with parallel dominant 7th chords syncing by half steps, which is a little bit of proto-impressionism there, looking forward to Debussy and the like. Grieg was not the first one to write passages like this. There are several striking examples of things like this in Chopin's music, for example. But Grieg made it much more a normal part of his style. Then one more motive, it's a falling fourth in the right hand. And falling fourths and fifths become very integral to the structure of this piece. But in particular, this falling fourth is also developed into this kind of bird call later on. One other very important motive in the piece is this idea of polyrhythms. So 2 against 3, for example, is made use of in a very obvious way. And also you will notice that in that bird call that I just played for you, the falling fourth in the upper part gradually accelerates from duples to triples. Again, kind of developing this idea of polyrhythms, duples, triples. And it's really striking to me, rather than using typical methods of development, Grieg makes many striking effects through just very simple harmonic means. For instance, in the middle section, the B section, he creates a really striking effect by setting up dominant 7th chords in a certain key, but then dropping the bass a tritone instead of going to the actual root. And this is an actual procedure that you can use when you undercut the resolution like this. You create this kind of feeling of restlessness and movement. Another related technique that he uses is to replace the resolution with a third related chord. So the bass, technically it drops an augmented fifth, but that's actually inharmonic to a third. By using these types of avoided resolutions, it makes the payoff when he actually does resolve a dominant 7th chord correctly all the more effective and brings us home in a way that kind of creates a feeling of great distance, like we've traveled a long way, even though it's only been a few bars, a few lines of music. Again, very simple harmonic means. In the end of the piece, he does a very simple switch from a major 7th chord, an F major 7th chord, to a F minor 7th chord. And it's absolutely inspired and magical, and of course, ties into the idea of chromatically descending lines. Even the last cadence is very simple but strikingly unusual and very characteristic of Grieg's sound. Grieg just alters the 5 chord, so the 2nd chord in this example. He alters it by 1 note. Normally the 5 chord in C major would be G, B, D, a G major chord, but here he actually changes it to an E minor chord, so a E, G, B instead. This is inspired by the melody. He wants the E to hold over to the end for a more open-ended feeling. By doing so, he creates this very unusual sounding cadence. It's something in between a regular 5-1 and a plagal cadence, but it has its own unique sound. Just compare if he had done something more normal, like a 5-1 cadence, like this. and compare that to the original. So it's quite subtle, but it's completely different. I think you would agree. And I hope this does give you some insight into the kind of tools that Grieg used to make these pieces so special and why we actually should respect works like this rather than dismissing them as being inconsequential. I'll be doing plenty more Grieg on this channel. Besides the lyric pieces, there are many other wonderful pieces that Grieg wrote. I actually also quite like his large-scale works. I already put the Ballade on this channel, and I'm planning to do his piano sonata as well at some point. So please enjoy the complete performance coming up, and also please consider supporting this channel if you can. An easy way to do that is through patreon.com, www.patreon.com/independentpianist. You can sign up to make a monthly pledge, and that really helps me. If you sign up for $5 a month, it really contributes towards making me independent enough to put a lot of focus into this channel, which is my eventual goal. Also, feel free to drop me a line if you're interested in studying piano with me. I take students that I teach online, and I kind of have a little system developed now that works really well for online teaching. So if you're really ambitious, you want to take your playing to the next level, I can definitely give you tools to accomplish that. So just drop me a line at cole@independentpianist.com if that's something that would interest you. But otherwise, just subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and stay tuned next week. I'll be back with some more great music, great discussion. So thanks very much for watching. Until next time.